Okay, hello.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to TheAirFresheners. I'm Kristina.
I'm Steven.
And if you're returning, welcome back.
Episode 12.
Here we are. So, I'm excited for today's episode because I feel like we talk about this quite a bit of just understanding people and being into astrology and, just kind of being conscious of other people's energy. So, what is it?
Today, we're going to talk about the balance and difference in definition of masculine and feminine energy, which is quite an interesting topic because it kind of fuels everything we do.
Right. And I think there's a huge stigma on masculine meaning male and feminine meaning female.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna get into that and talk about how that's wrong.
Yeah.
And how society kind of wants you to believe that certain qualities of both energy are one is less than the other.
Yeah. Like you have to be all masculine or you have to be all feminine and just things related to that.
You have to have like an even balance for sure. So I wrote down a few things that I wanted to talk about. So here we go.
Let's go. Fire
I'm excited.
away.
So we found this article just to like back up what we're talking about. We're not just coming up with it ourselves.
Pulling it out of our ass.
We wrote this article. It's called Find the Balance Between Your Feminine and Masculine Energy, and it's on the Chopra Center.
We could actually post that on YouTube or Instagram because it's actually a really good article.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It goes in like depth of all of these things that we're just briefly talking about. So they kind of mentioned that gender is the expression in appearance, behavior, and language. So that's like your outer, what organs you have, just like your outer shell. So that's how we're perceived. And then the energy, the masculine, feminine, is your, like the beneath. It's like your vibe you give off. Like the physical or like the inside of like your, what's it called? Like it's just like
your core, your soul, your personality.
Yeah, your personality.
Yeah.
I feel like when you meet someone for the first time, you automatically have this like, you feel their energy.
Their vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just like their initial, you can be a very masculine physical appearance, but they might be quiet. So you're like, oh, like you're kind of more, you're actually giving off a feminine energy because you're not like loud and raw, you know what I mean? Like it's so different because it's the same with a female. Like she could be like really feminine looking, but if she's loud and like
she could be a boss ass bitch.
Yeah, and if she like knows her voice, you're like, whoa, you're powerful, So I think it's cool to kind of like break up the differences between knowing that you're talking to someone with a feminine core compared to your masculine core.
Yeah.
So.
And it all comes down to just being like another level of self-awareness and like understanding it in the same way that like you understand just like who you are as a person, like just knowing whether you're more masculine, more feminine, and what each of those traits are and what you like lean towards more helps you move forward with that understanding, and you can use what you have more of to benefit you. Right.
And it's like figuring out what you lack and being able to be like, okay, I should do exercises or focus on figuring out like what I'm lacking in my feminine energy or vice versa. Like, what am I not good at in my masculine, So it's like you said, it's like that second layer of consciousness about figuring out things that you want to work on for yourself and relating to people differently,
Absolutely. And I think it's super important too when you start to like understand this to realize that there has to be some kind of balance between the two. So like someone who's like completely and totally like overly masculine, like chances are they have like a ridiculously high ego. Like they're not connected with anyone around them. Like they're very like just not in touch with anything other than themselves. And then someone who's overly feminine probably gets walked all over and just things of that nature. But
right. Like doesn't feel like they have a voice or is kind of scared to be a human in a sense. So, what are some of the qualities you wrote down that are of feminine energy?
Some of the ones that really stood out to me for feminine was having empathy, being able to nurture people, being open to just things, creativity, which caught me off guard because I didn't know that that was like a feminine trait. I thought that that was just a general thing. Compassion, feelings, and having intuition. Ooh. So like all of those things are like super important to me. And I feel like I have a lot of those traits, and I feel like most people have a lot of those traits, but to break that down and realize that that's feminine energy, it's pretty interesting.
Right. Cause like what we were talking about with creativity, I was trying to think of things that like are like of a feminine energy that we do. And it's like this podcast definitely consumes a feminine energy. Yeah. We're talking, we're communicating, we're listening to each other, we're being creative, we're trying to come up with new ideas and speaking our truth. Like that is all very of a feminine power. Yeah. So I love that. And I always like really identify with the masculine. So I like to see that like creativity isn't like overwhelmed and masculine. Yeah, it's really not.
For sure.
So that was super cool.
What about you with the masculine traits?
The masculine qualities I wrote down were leadership, action, adventure, confidence, focus, pride, and power. And I feel like all of those things are just so one track minded. Yeah. You know, it's just like there's nothing behind me, like, or in just front of me, no distractions. Shit done, tunnel vision. It's just like I know what I want, I am getting there. And that's like we need that power, obviously, to get shit done, but at the same time you're not going to be successful if you don't have a community of people that are helping you. Yeah. Or you're not letting other people talk about ideas and a way to run your business. And like our society is so overwhelmed in masculine energy right now, and like all of this shit that's going on with like, you know, this pandemic. And if you want to look at it on a bigger scale, like Mother Nature, like our earth is hurting. It's a feminine energy, and it's like we need like a break. So I feel like everything is like the yin and yang, and we have been so imbalanced for like years. You can look at it for even like decades now. It's just getting so far that I think something like this has to happen to like level the playing field. Yeah. It's so true, because like we're made up of this energy, like the collective is like, it's all layers, the earth, like it's just stupid to not think about it on a larger scale.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is something I've kind of been aware of for a while, but I couldn't pinpoint what it meant, like especially with astrology. Like I feel like I've known I've been in my masculine energy for a long time, just because I've always been pretty independent, and like when I know what I want, like I want to get it, and like I just feel comfortable in that. And like even being around more masculine energy, that makes me feel comfortable. So with astrology, how that relates to is like fire and air signs are masculine energy, and then earth and water signs are in their feminine. So in my chart, I'm mostly air or fire. So that's like a heavy masculine energy. Yeah. So even when I do other people's charts, I feel like I can kind of sense if they have an overwhelming amount of like earth signs. I'm like, oh, like you look or feel like a feminine person, you know?
Yeah,
so
it definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
And with my chart too, I'm like equally masculine and feminine between.
Which is interesting, because like not a lot of people have that both. Yeah. You know, because like usually you have more of one.
Yeah. So. And there's been like points when I like started getting into like my self-awareness and like understanding, like even before this, like there was a lot of feminine, what's the word I'm looking for?
Feminine.
Feminine tendencies. Okay. And it's just like, it's not a bad thing. It's just when you break it down like this, because it's just like I have compassion, I can feel people out, like I have a lot of intuition, like the creative side, and like I love listening, I love talking, I love doing all those things. So like realizing that even though I am a guy, like there's no shame in having
a feminine core.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's all a part of who you are, and like everyone has their own balance of masculine and feminine, and it just makes up who you are.
Yeah, and I think once you detach the idea of that, again, the masculine meaning male and the feminine meaning female, that's where you can start to embody those qualities and not feel like ashamed for being more feminine in the feminine energy, because it's just a societal view that we've put that we have to have one or the two, you know, like
that's another thing. Like growing up, like a lot of people, like you're told like boys wear blue, girls wear pink, and then like men have to be strong, women have to be pretty.
Right.
So like you grow up your whole life of like being like a guy and like going through school and like doing all these things, and like you have to play sports and you have to do this, and it's weird if a girl wants to play football, and it's weird if a girl does anything besides paint her nails and like whatever other stuff that like society like shoved down our throats as we were growing up. So like until you separate yourself from that, you never really have a chance to see like maybe I do have more pros in this area that I could use to my advantage.
Yeah, because that's shut off, especially if you have parents very, you know, deep in societal culture that believes like, oh, I'm like the military dad and you have to play football or you have to do it. You know, just that kind of like closed-minded like generation or just like people that are like that. It's not really a generation. People are still like that are our age. It's really hard for you to see that you can be yourself or be a man and be an artist, or you know what I mean? Like if you don't have parents that let you be who you want to be, that's all closed off for a really long time until you're aware of it. So it's good. I feel like things are a lot different than even when we grew up though. You know, like I feel like kids now can like, I mean, I know it's like a huge cultural difference for like middle schoolers to be like, you know, figuring out if they're non-binary or wanting sex changes. Like that's such the culture or like the generation coming up is so much more aware of things like that and not being like gender based at all, which I find so interesting. And it's like really, I honestly think it's really healthy for them to be able to separate. I don't think I was ever in that place at that young of an age. You know, I couldn't separate from my gender.
Yeah, I do have a lot of interest in that topic, and I think that it's fascinating how things are changing like that. I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on people that say like, I'm going to identify as like this or I'm going to identify as that, as long as it's not shoved down my throat. Like if someone's going to sue me for saying you're a guy when you're a female, like totally fine, like do your thing, keep it to yourself. But I do think it's super fascinating that how that's changing. Yeah,
like how pronouns are changing. And I think it's just respectful because I do have a few friends that are non-binary, and learning their new pronouns is something that I'm currently trying to figure out, and just be respectful and be like, you're identifying as something else and I'm your friend and I want to respect you and I want to love you for who you currently are. You know what I mean? So it's different for everybody. And I think the more we practice of not calling somebody he or she, it'll get normal. Like it's like anything else. It just takes practice.
The evolution of our culture.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's cool. Like I like that people are becoming more comfortable in their core. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Everyone's totally entitled to whatever they want to do with themselves. There's no reason for me to judge anyone else because it's not affecting me. It doesn't matter.
No. So I did find a test on Tony Robbins' website.
I love tests.
I love tests
as long
too.
As they're not
it's not
from
a
school.
Test, it's like a quiz. To figure out, you know, what your core is, either feminine or masculine energy. So it's I think 11 questions and we'll just get into it.
Fire away.
I did mine yesterday and it was masculine. Oh, your leading energy is feminine. We were talking about that. Dude, that's so cool. And then, so there's like a whole thing for you to read based on that. I just wanted to see what it was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so cool. I'll just leave that there. I love that though. Yeah. That's awesome.
It's I definitely like who I am as a person. So knowing that I have more like feminine traits, like I said, like I don't know, it just works for me. Works for me and like the things that I do, and like I've never been like overly competitive in like sports or anything like that. And like, there's a lot of things that I want to do with my life as far as like business goes and like succeeding in things, but I feel like I have just enough of the masculine to like get those things done.
Right.
But I have so much more of the creativity and the feeling, and it's great.
That's like mix. What you want to achieve, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay. I have an answer.
What is something you recently did that activated your feminine energy? Other than this podcast.
So a friend of mine, good friend of mine, she's super cool, and we hooked up, and she has more masculine energy than any like female that I've ever been like interested in. And like I've never been drawn to like masculine women in the bedroom. Like my place to get my masculinity out the most is always in the bedroom. Like I'm super dominant, super aggressive, like all about that in the bedroom. But having sex with her for the first time, it was the first time I think I've ever like truly let my like masculine side down. And she just like had her way, and she was like dominant, and like I was just like letting go, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Because I'm always the one that's like dominating.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see that side was possible and like to experience that. So it was cool.
And it's definitely good to like switch it up, especially in like a sexual environment. Like it almost gets like stagnant if you have the same role every time.
Yeah, and I noticed that too with like the masculine energy. There's a point in like having sex, like the time period of when I was like having the most sex last year, it was just strictly like ego sex. Like I was always just having sex for my ego, because it got to a point where it's like every single person, like I just wanted to be the best. I just wanted like all the feedback about it, and it's like that got to be too much. And the same person that had the masculine energy actually told me, she was like, it seems like you like just fuel your ego with sex.
Damn.
I was like, yep.
That's an
You're
honest,
not wrong.
good friend right there. Because like for someone to be able to like say that and recognize it in you is like, I care about you, and I'm just bringing this to your awareness. You know?
Yeah. So it was nice to hear
cool.
that. And ever since like then, my I don't know, my inclination to like have sex to feed my ego has definitely changed, and my mindset towards it has definitely changed.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, that's super cool. It's good to be evolving in that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for you, what is how has your love life been affected by your masculine tendencies?
I love that question, because like I said, as of the past few years, I've started to notice the pattern in men that I choose because of it. So I would say, not because like I haven't tested it out, but like I feel like a lot of the people I find romantically interesting do have a feminine core. So they're either like even if they're masculine appearance, like deep down, I feel like I always pick like the quiet, to themselves type of person. They're not like really loud, because I want to be the loud they just kind of like let me be, you know? And it's like that's, I feel like I need that polar opposite. So I feel like that's just what I attract. Yeah. Because I feel like I lack feminine energy sometimes, so I'm craving that in a partner. And I feel like it, for the most part, it's like really been well balanced. The only thing I've come across is that I feel too much sometimes. Like I feel like I overwhelm certain men, because like I want to be extroverted, I want to hang out with my friends, or I want to like just have my freedom to do what I want. But then there's parts of me that like still really likes coming home or just being one-on-one and intentional with people. But I feel like that balance is sometimes really weird for someone in their feminine core, for someone to be like so comfortable being out and like having multiple friendships with a lot of people. Oh yeah. So I think that would probably be the only downfall of being in my masculine, is that I'm just so like extroverted sometimes, and I think it's not intimidating, I just don't think it's understood. Yeah. So yeah. It's from like my perspective too, like when I'm
I guess looking for someone to like date or someone to like hook up with, like I said, like seeing that like just super outgoing, just like badass bitch, bossy, like whatever, like all good things. It's just, it's not my first choice. Like I'm always into like the like more reserved, more quiet, and it's, I don't know. Yeah. It's interesting.
I also feel like my mood and alcohol consumption changes that like boss ass bitch. Like
I've seen it a couple
comes
times.
out like, but for the most part, I feel like I'm not reserved, but I think I'm respectful until I feel comfortable with being like my loud, obnoxious New York self. She comes out eventually, but it's just like I try to gauge my I don't know, community. And what's the word, like company, I guess. So yeah. But no, I love this topic, and now that we've like introduced it, it would be cool to do other episodes based on like masculine like energies you notice in the workplace, or you know what I mean? We can now build on this like idea.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a good thing to get deep on, because it affects so much, and like people you work with, people that you're friends with, like yourself, like there's just so much to understand about people around you and yourself when you start to get into this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like if anyone has any questions, or you know, like brainstorm with us like what you like feel is more masculine or feminine, or do you feel more of one or the other? And it'd just be cool to hear other people's like insights of dealing with this as well.
Yeah, we should post that the test on our page.
Okay, that'd be awesome. It's like only 11 questions, so you can get it done in like 5 minutes.
Sounds good. We'll definitely post that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
See ya.